Hi, my name is Scott Wootton, and I'm only here because one of my teammates dropped out.
I'm Goffy. I'm here on the Unused Subs. I'm only here because Scott Wootton was here, and I'm so excited to see him again.
When was the last time you two were in the same spot together?
God, I don't know. It would have been Chatswood, wow. I would imagine, in
Chatswood,
Sydney. At the end of the season, a couple of years ago, while we were still in COVID times, and playing over there. But yeah, that's how we got to obviously meet Scotty.
Yeah, Goffy's let me down a few times whenever we've played, been up in Auckland. He's we come round for a coffee, but I've never seen him. So
he's ghosted you. Oh, mate, come on. What are the reasons?
Pied us off.
I have to be, I'm very busy now, as you understand, with my new role.
Of course. Yeah.
He's got 5 international windows here to deal with.
That's right, yeah, I was very busy.
Exactly, yeah.
And of course, hooking up the Wellington Phoenix for you, Scott, it was also being reunited with David Ball, who I think you crossed paths with for the first time at Peterborough, which would have been more than a decade ago now. So what part did Bally play in getting you down to the A-League and getting into the Wellington Phoenix?
He played a huge part. Like you say, we played together. He was signed at Peterborough. I joined there on loan. I think I was 20 or 21. 20 I think. And we were a similar age. He was only 1 or 2 years above me. We were both from the northwest of England. So we travelled down to Peterborough together, 2.5 hour drive, sort of once a week. So we got quite close. And then we didn't keep in touch like constantly throughout our careers, but every now and again I'd bump into him on a Christmas do or a night out in Manchester or just on Instagram, stuff like that. We'd have the odd conversation, and I think it was the year before I came. Actually, it was the January before. I'd spoke to him and he was saying he was loving it over there and stuff, and it just looked, from his Instagram anyway, it looked like he was having a great time and really enjoying himself. And he just texted me saying, asked me if I'd fancy going over there to play in the A-League. And I was at a point in my career where, I wasn't really happy with the trajectory that I was going on, where I was at, and stuff like that. And I just fancied something different. I was 29, nearly 30. I'd played over 10 years in England, and I just fancied a change of scenery, change of environment. I wanted to sort of reinvent myself, and he put me in touch with his agent, and it went from there really. And then 12 months later, I was in the Meriton Suites with Goffy, and it was great.
And the rest is history.
Yeah. When you're looking at Bally's Instagram, you're going through the feed. Which was the post that did it for you? Was it the lads on the jet skis in the harbour, or what?
Yeah, that's what it was. He was on jet skis. He was on in the sea. That looked just like a beautiful still lake. He looked like he was having a great time. The stadiums, people videoed the stadiums before games and stuff, and it just looked like top quality. And as you guys know, Bally can talk a lot, can't he? So having someone go into the detail that Bally goes into, he really opened my eyes to it, and it was something I just fancied.
Yeah, well, credit to Agent Ball on that one. What for you was really important when you're looking at the A-League and then ultimately making the decision, I suppose you as well, Goffy, about your move from the UK? Because I think it would be good for Kiwis to hear what is of value and what is an attraction for someone like yourself, having played for Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson, Leeds, and then coming down to the A-League to then support the success of the Wellington Phoenix.
The big attraction for me, Spoons, was I'd done a lot of work at looking at players who'd come over from England. There was at the time, there was like Stevie Taylor, obviously Goffy will know, Adam Lafondre, Jay O'Shea, Tom Aldred, Bally, obviously Hoops. There was a lot of English players going over who'd had really, really good careers. Butterfield, Shotton were at Melbourne Victory, Calmach. So I'd done a lot of work. I looked at, there was a lot of older players playing, and England after COVID was getting, England after COVID was getting very... that's the word to describe. Very tight, basically, with contracts and budgets, like the whole world was in a way. And I just, like I said, I just fancied the change. I'd done a lot of work looking at players, and I just felt like it was a really good way that I could extend my career. And obviously, it's worked out that way, which has been great. But it was something that at the time in England, everyone was on 1-year deals. The money was cut from, what it was to really, really low and tight. And I was lucky that I knew a lot of people who had lived in Australia, and I knew a few people who had lived in New Zealand, and everyone couldn't speak highly enough of the lifestyle, the way of life, how relaxed it was, how good it was to bring kids up. I had 2 young kids. They said, New Zealand to raise kids is the safest, most beautiful place, that you could do, same as Australia. So I think those things, the fact that it was a chance of extending my career, plus how good the lifestyle was and how good it would have been off the pitch, really sort of swayed my decision.
When somebody of Scotty's quality enters the squad, Goffy, How noticeable is it? Obviously he's had his grounding with the youth teams in Liverpool, the academy at Manchester United, and then he comes into the Wellington Phoenix setup. How noticeable was it straight away?
When Scotty came in, when you get these visa players that come in that have this experience from playing overseas, they lift everybody else up as well. You've only got to look with Scotty, with Finn Surman coming through as one of the young ones at that point, to have an experienced centre half alongside them that could actually not just talk to them about defending stuff, but also talk about the game, where their pass goes, that kind of stuff. It does help those younger players as well. And also, Scotty didn't mention there, the easy part of coming over was it's just 26 games, 27 games in a season, instead of normally playing like he would have to play 45, 50 games in a year. So it does prolong the career for the more senior players in the squad. So
that's nice, Scotty's senior.
It's really well, yeah.
That's
veteran
compliment.
Almost. Yeah.
Senior's better than Walrus, isn't it?
Yeah, probably right. Yeah.
So when you are moving from Liverpool to Manchester to join United, how difficult is that, mate? Because that's stepping over quite the divide there. Like, what's the thought process there? Because we're seeing at a much kind of higher scale the pressure that's on Trent Alexander-Arnold not to leave the city at the moment. What kind of challenges did you come up against when you were looking at signing for Manchester United?
Basically, I was 14 or 15. Liverpool's academy had won the Youth Cup, which is like a massive tournament in England for that under-18 team. They won it 2 years on the bounce. And this was more where my dad needs a lot of credit. He was looking at who was playing in the reserves, who was sort of playing in the Carabao Cup, what players from that team were getting a sniff in the first team. And there was hardly anyone. And Goffy will tell you, you'll know with yourselves, like, to win the Youth Cup back-to-back is quite special, really. And there was no one really kicking on. I think Jay Speedham was the only player who's had a decent career, maybe Martin Kelly, 2 players out of sort of a squad of 15, 16. Rafa Benitez won the European Cup, and he obviously got a lot more power at the club. So he was just signing massive influx of foreign players from all over Europe, South America. So basically the reserve team squad was full of signings from whether it was Benitez's agents or people at the club. So there was a massive block from the academy up to the first team. And before I signed for Liverpool, I could have signed for United as an 11-year-old. And the scout just every year kept in touch. And it got to a point I was 15. All the parents of the kids at my age weren't really happy with the pathway through to the first team or even the reserve team, forget the first team. And I remember the scouts calling from Man United saying, is Scott being kept on, what's going on? And he said, oh yeah, he is, but we're not very happy this has come up. There's question marks about the pathway. And he just said, I'll bring him in. It was a half term at school, so I went in for a week. I had to write a letter to Liverpool, which they weren't very happy about. And then I just went in for a week, and it was just absolutely unbelievable. In that week, I think I was 16. It was in my last year at school. I trained with the reserve, like the youth team and the reserves was like together, mixed, and it was just like I've seen reserve players going up training with the first team. So that pathway to become a player was just there. And unfortunately, at the end of that week, Man United said they wanted to sign me, and that was that. But in terms of the pressure, look, at that age, there's no real spotlight on the 16s level football. No one would have really knew about that at Liverpool. Like I said, there was loads of foreign players coming over, blocking the pathway of the local players, and it proved a decent decision in the end.
I suppose the benefit of going to Manchester United at that time, Scott, was that there was a focus on English players. Like when you look at the Manchester United squad, the first team squad of that time, you were seeing people like Gary Neville, like David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, Welsh I know, but local players playing in the first team. So that pathway, as you speak about, that was very obvious to you at a young age.
Exactly. That was what, the history of the club was built on, giving young players a chance, especially local players. I mean, I'm not that old, Goran. Beckham was long gone. I think Beckham was retired at that point.
I thought you were 40,
I know I've
Scott.
seen it. Yeah, and I was. But there was
there's got to be a sprinkle of more recent players in there. Wes Brown,
yeah. Wes Brown, John O'Shea, Darren Fletcher. They were sort of lads coming from the academy. Darren Gibson. Then you had the next batch was like Danny Welbeck was coming through. Tom Cleverley. They were like the two, a few years above me. Really cemented themselves for a few years. And then it was just like a machine. Really, it was a good time to be there for sure.
I could have sworn I saw a picture of you in a Manchester United shirt in a lineup with Ryan Giggs as captain, crouched down in
Giggs
front.
was still there, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Biggs
So
was
I wasn't
still there,
100% wrong.
No,
I
you're
was
not
probably
wrong.
about 50% wrong.
It's just
Maybe
I was
less.
hoping for some more recent plays. But we're dancing around it here, Woots. Sir Alex Ferguson, what are your best moments that you can remember from watching him operate or even interacting with him?
He just had an unbelievable aura where if he walked into a room, it just like it's impossible to recreate with anyone I've ever met. Like if he walked in through the doors in the canteen, the whole room would just like, it's hard to even describe, to be honest. But he had an amazing way of having that aura of like, you would not do anything to mess about in front of him, but at the same time he gave you confidence, which was unbelievable. And look, I was in the youth team reserves, so I didn't have loads to do it in, but I had probably a 6 month to a year spell where I was involved with the first team, and obviously, look, I wasn't nowhere near one of the main players, but the odd interaction and the odd talk he'd have with me, he just made you feel 10 foot tall. I remember I played against Chelsea, didn't have a good game, made a few mistakes for a few goals, and the very next day in training, he just walked over to me, give me like a little slap around the neck, put his arm around me, and was just like, last night's gone, son. You're still a good player. Believe you'll have no problems. And like, I just remember thinking, wow, like he just felt 10 foot tall. It was unbelievable. No tactics, no training. He left that to his staff. He had amazing trust in all of his staff, but he just knew exactly what to say to what player at the right time. He'd plan his teams, 2-3 games in advance, because he obviously had a big squad to deal with, kept everyone happy. Just a genius of a manager, really.
You speak about the aura. Did Goffy have it? And if it wasn't Goffy, was it Uffy? Because Ufuk Tele is the kind of guy that scares the life out of people. We know Paul Eiffel pretty well, having worked with him. And, oh, man, whenever they get put together, Ify shrinks.
What's like literally we're on the panel in the post-match and he shifted positions with me so he didn't have to stand
like,
next
Spoon,
to
you go next to him.
So
just scared of his eyes. Does he have the same sort of aura? Like when he walks into the cafeteria, people are like, oh, it's Ufuk Tele.
No, he's got he had a very, for my side of things, learning a lot from it. He was very, for me, he was very open and honest. Yeah, he's got scary eyes. Yeah, definitely.
Certainly does, eh? Piercing, eh?
Yeah, we had a set two.
A set two.
One of my first seasons with the Phoenix with Rudan, we played Sydney, and he was the assistant coach then, and so we had a bit of a set two
on the sideline.
On the sideline, going off at each other, and then when Rudan left and Uffy was announced, I thought to myself, oh no, what have I done? So the first thing he said when he sat down with me, he went, I don't mind that. He said, someone fighting for the things. He said, that's good. And I went, oh, okay, I'm sorry about that. He went, no, don't be sorry. This is fine. Don't ever be sorry. So he made it comfortable for me, and I enjoyed it.
I think he's a bit nuts on a match day, Goffy, wasn't he? On the side.
Absolute crazy.
So he's not always like that, because he's very intense on the sideline.
No, not at all. No.
Oh, he was quite relaxed during the week. Tactically, fantastic, but yeah, very, like obviously quite relaxed. Good for the players. Very clear in his messaging and what he wanted from the team for that particular game. And then he was a bit mad on the day of the game.
He'd cross
when
that
the whistle blew,
line and would go off. And I remember a few times turning around, going, right, your turn at the fourth official because he's going to book me now. Go, and it would be like, whoa.
Well, let's get on that.
Yeah.
Because you got a couple of yellow cards and there's a couple of scuffles with Goffy, weren't there? Not sure if it against a fourth official, but maybe a bench that got the ire of your wrath.
A few. In my older days, this is my new version of me now.
Right, you're new age.
You've reinvented yourself at 45, have you?
Okay, good.
Rearranged, and I'm very woke now, so this is good. It should be good.
So back in your reckless days,
have you changed?
Let's talk about those
have you changed your diet, Goffy?
Yeah,
change the diet.
the diet hasn't changed.
What is the diet for everyone at home? What is Goffy's staple?
I've never seen anything like it. We used to get lunch at the training ground in Sydney, and there was a bit of colour and a few vegetables and meat and stuff. And Goffy I only ever seen Goffy have chips and wraps. He used to put just plain chips and white rice. Was it white or beige rice on a
white
wrap?
Rice, yeah.
White rice.
Unbelievable.
So the rainbow of your diet is brown, beige,
burnt,
Burnt.
breadcrumbs.
Breadcrumbs.
Yeah, that's it. Pretty much bread. That's pretty much about it. Yeah, so
Okay.
that works.
So you haven't grown up, because
No.
that's the diet of like a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah, or even younger probably. My Wood's kids will eat much better than what I would do straight away from there. So I'd always say luckily my wife has not looked after our kids better, and they eat absolutely everything. So it was something that just.
So it's
stuck
not
with me.
hereditary, is what you're saying?
No. I remember going to I'm sitting there with physios, club doctors. Any new squad that I go to sit down with or new players come in, it's the same. What is he eating? This is it. And if people have been with me enough, no, they know this, and it was the same on Auckland City. I'd sit there and they'd send me to a dietitian to go and see it, and then they come back and go, well, actually, if he eats something different, I'm not sure what might happen to him. So I've lasted this long with it, so I'm looking at it going,
Just stay the course, mate.
stick at it now. Yeah, not very high performance, but it's
Well, you
worked
don't
for
need to
me.
be. You don't need to be. You're no longer in goal. You're just
No.
telling other goalkeepers what to do.
Yeah,
to do.
but
Yeah.
what's Sun saying in camp? What
Yeah.
kind of influence are you having on the players?
Yeah, these guys, they all just know now, so it's expected. So if we get a new staff member come in and sit on our dinner table with us,
Yeah.
and they you can see them start looking, going, oh yeah, and then Bays would love it. Go, no, he just doesn't eat this. He's so fussy. Oh, all right. So yeah, so it's become I really get worried when new members come in, or if the CEO or the president come and sit in at the table, and I'm like, oh no, I'm just eating rice and plain chicken, and that's it.
Embarrassing.
I'm trying to stay away from the wraps now a little bit though. Watching the figures,
Bailey
that's
Rainbow.
got- yeah.
Oh, that's good.
What do you do if you go out for a meal with the family or
That's-
your missus?
Yeah, that's my problem. My wife would love to go out and have something, but whenever we go out, she looks at the menu to see if there's fish and chips or if there's a plain rice or something. So she never gets to go
Is that
anywhere
the kids'
nice.
menu, or is that
Yeah, so when he's at the restaurant, it's always flip it over. All right, kids' menu.
Nugget meal is fine. We can go there. Yeah, so
The tiny pizza.
Yeah, it's something my wife would love to be something different. I know. Yeah, so good.
Look, as good as that is, I think we've sort of like gone on
Yeah,
a
I've got
different
no
path.
idea.
We were trying to get to the bottom of your aggressive nature on the sideline, and yes, it's changed,
Yeah.
but what was the most aggressive you've ever been on the sideline, and how bad did it get?
I think I've been pretty
Yeah,
good. I got.
Were you the delegated person because Ufi wanted to
Yeah.
get the yellow
Like
card
the attack
sent off?
dog.
like the tack dog kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was very hard because Ufi was very, very good at that as well. So it came about in the.
So was that the problem? You felt you had to one up him a little
Yeah, I
bit?
had to go up for it. Come on, let's do this. What are we doing? It had to be. It was an interesting one. So it was probably more with Rudan when Mark came in. We were in a position where he would turn around to me and go, your job is to get into the other bench because we're stronger and So it was sort of a thing that I'd go, well, this is a bit strange, but I didn't mind. That was fine. So coming from the UK where this kind of chirpiness is happening all the time, it's when you come to over here and the new modern football, it's quite different now. So so I think I had four yellow cards in my first one. I was probably the only goalie coach that was going to get suspended from a game. So so then I learned under Uffy to sort of taper that down.
If you get 5, you're done for a game.
I get done for a game. I get suspended still. So I had 4 very, very quick early on with Rudan, and then when Uffy came in, it was a lot better because he got most of the yellow cards, so that was fine from the bench. We did have the one in. You spoke to Costa about the Mexico when we played those in the Confeds. And I don't know if he said but there was a big. Obviously, it all kicked off on the field with Boxy flying in and Mikey McGlinchey
Great
hitting
tackle.
the floor. Yeah, all touch tackles and flying around. But what was also mentioned was the bench itself as well. That was not only was it going off on the field, the bench was there and they were in the middle of it all, and it was flying off over there.
And were you
as
like
well.
the Pied Piper? Everybody follow me!
Yeah,
Let's rip in.
Yeah, the truth being, and this footage Bays will show you, it was all going off. And I'm thinking, geez, I can't get booked here. This isn't a good look because my wife watches them at home and she's my biggest critic and she just bashes me all the time.
So you got Laura in the
back of
background.
my mind thinking, what are you doing? Stop being a bloody, you're too old for this. And right in my head. So you see this big fight go and then you see me just start moving away. So it's all started and then I just sort of dwindle away.
Homer Simpson into the hedge
into
styles,
the hedge to get away. So that was it was a good it was a good learning anyway. Yeah, so I'm under Bays. Bays is a completely different character on the sideline, which then makes everyone around him on his staff be quite different. We have Simon Elliott to deal with the fourth official now, so I'm okay.
You're off rotation,
Yeah,
so
I mean, yeah.
Feet up, relaxing.
Yeah, that's right.
I haven't seen any aggression from you, Scotty.
If I lose my head, then I'm not a good player. I've got to be calm and keep emotional control, should we say? Because I think if I've done it, it's happened a few times, and then you just lose all track of what your job is, your positioning and stuff like that. And I need to be always in the right position, rather than relying on my amazing physical attributes. So I have to rely on my brain rather than my speed and stuff. And so I've got to keep emotional control. So it takes a lot for me to lose my head.
Well, there would be other players, and I'm sure all three of you would have seen this over the course of your playing days, other players that need to be fired up to get the best out of themselves.
One that I can think of off the top of my head that you won't know, Scott, but you have to be very careful with him because he can just overstep the mark ever so slightly, and if that happens then he's gone, is Chad Coombs. If you got Coombsy at around about 90-95%, he could literally run all day. Like, he suddenly just worked himself into this kind of infinite fuel where his physical ability just kept going and going.
But is he mouthing off at everybody, or
no?
What's the go?
The problem was, the problem is if he got quiet. Because if he got quiet, then you knew the next ball across, someone was just getting crunched. And typically that would be a red card. Yeah. The other one I think that runs well hot is Tim Payne. I think Payne, if he's got a focus and he's got an outlet for it, I think he does really well when he's just kind of humming it around about an amber, not quite a red. But those are the two that immediately come to my mind.
Roofs is another one, and he'll always be sort of ratting around, making those tackles, doing everything that he wants to do, but he's got a really good way, like Scotty said, of just calming himself back down again. One example for Roofs in that last game when we played in the final, when we played New Cali, he was coming on. Just as he was coming on, Costa scored. And I'm just about to go through the subs with him like that, and we both celebrate, and he looks at me and he goes, right, calm down. Okay, and he sort of actually said it out loud, and we went, right, okay, this is your role when you go back on, and he went on from there. But
so to bring himself back down
he had little ones to recognise as well, so it was good.
The Kiwi audience, there was a lot of kind of questioning around why Alex got the vice captaincy. I think it was under Mark, and then got the captaincy under Ufi, and also the value that he brings to the Phoenix side, Scott. It's a constant question. I think, one, because of the name, two, because he's gone from striker back to defensive midfielder. And as part of the broadcast team, you almost feel like you have to defend it at times, which is a bit ridiculous because his performance should stand on its own merits. But both of you have worked with him. Do you just want to speak to what it is that he brings to this footballing side that people might not appreciate at times? Yeah,
I think his game is not just him, but that type of player is often underappreciated in football because, like you're saying there about the broadcast and the audience, the fans love the Costas and the Rocasas and these types of players who score the goals and get the assists and do the skills and all that. But Roof's job in the dressing room is definitely not undervalued. That surprises me a lot because I can only speak from when I came to the club. I remember him and Clayton Goffy at that time had a fantastic partnership in midfield. They were both brilliant, and then obviously he suffered the ACL injury. He bounced back from that, and off his last year he played really well. His debut against Sydney away, he was outstanding. And then you'd always have that little buffer where you're getting your legs back and you've been out for so long. So then it was a bit tough for him. He was in and out a little bit for the end of the season, but then he bounced back last year and he was amazing for us last year. He's done such a great job. Perfect balance, like Goffy was saying, between being calm and being aggressive when he needed to be. He uses the ball well. He plays forward when he can. His defensive work is probably the best in the league in that position, in my opinion. And I personally, I've got a lot of respect for him for a lot of stuff that he's been through in football. Like you say, the name, that weight, that pressure from being a young player, to carry that is obviously always going to be difficult. I think he had a really tough leg break when he was a teenager, 18 or 19. Really bad one, so to get back from that is difficult, very, very difficult. I think there was a stage at Wellington where he was wanted out, but he stayed and he fought and he worked his way back into the picture, and then he had the ACL, which someone who's been in that position. I've done the ACL as well. I know how tough that is. So for him to go through those 3 instances, I've got a massive amount of respect for him, and I think he deserves the armband just based off that. Forget what he brings on the pitch. He's a good mate of mine, and I've got a lot of respect for him.
They'd give me stick all the time, the staff, because I'd be going. That first year we had Rufer as captain, and Ollie was the assistant, vice captain.
Good from you, Goffy.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, bloody goalkeepers, we don't need this." But Roofs had been there the longest time. He knew the club. He knew what it was about. So it seemed simple, and actually he's taken on from that. And with the All Whites now, last year he came in the March window when we played over in Tunisia and Egypt, and that was as an injury replacement, and came in and played both those games. Then he committed, and he was there for the Nations Cup, and his sort of all-white rankings I see for Pine. He does his FIFA rankings or whatever it is from there. But
he'll be chuffed you've mentioned that, mate.
But he's obviously moving himself up, and now when we start looking at Joe Bell, Marko Stamenic, Alex Rufer, these guys are all fighting for some really important spots over the next year. So he's been really good.
Yeah, there's no doubt that his form last A-League season, you can almost draw a line through this one because of the sickness and all that sort of carry on. But last season, he was incredible. And, we would often stand there after a game and talk about this guy is the best defensive midfielder in the A-League competition. So it's of no shock to us that he's made that elevation, that he is in the All Whites conversation now as one of those 2 holding midfielders. But to Scott's point, I think people like the flash Harrys, and they want to see goals from long range, and they want to see these mazy, wonderful runs. And I don't know, maybe it's a New Zealand mindset thing, because I cast my mind back, and it's a different sport, I know, but Ruben Thorne used to captain the All Blacks, and they'd call him Captain Invisible. Like, how disrespectful is that to a guy who leads the nation's rugby team? I mean, we're in New Zealand, for goodness sake. We love rugby, and we're insulting our captain like that. So it's of no great surprise that they would treat Alex Rufer with that kind of disdain. But I think for most of us in the football community, we know the work that he does, and we really appreciate it. Can we talk about another young Kiwi who you would both be well aware of by now? What are the qualities, Goffy, of AP that have led Bournemouth, first of all, to go, this guy is somebody we need on our books? What did you see?
Yeah, so first of all, really, really focused. Very different to some of the other goalkeepers that I've worked with, and he won't mind me saying that, but different in a good way. He's
we'll get onto the video in a second. We're getting there, mate.
he's very he's very different, very driven, and he's got a target in mind, and he wants to do this. Well, when the Phoenix signed him at the academy, there was a couple of goalkeepers that we were looking at that point to bring in. He was the one that committed.
Yeah, I can't believe you said no to me.
Oh no, sorry, James. He came down, had the support of his family, and he pushed himself through. And I think that first year of COVID probably helped him out. Him, Oldie, Finn Surman, those kind of ones that didn't get an opportunity in with the first team, but they were retained by the club for another year to keep the numbers good within that reserve group. So when we went to Chatswood, it was over to Sydney for that second year, it was really easy for us to take Alex into that. We signed Alex, he signed on a 3-year deal with the club. And I remember sitting with him when we talked about first year experience, get around this, understand what's going on. Okay, can you then be on the, get 3-4 games? And then the second year, can you look to be a start in one? And with your third year, then anything's possible. And it's exactly how it went through for him with regards to that. And now we're seeing a different part of his game with Goldie, with Auckland. Auckland, they've signed him when he was with Scotty, playing out of the back, and that showed how fantastic he was with his feet. The Auckland side, which I'm really pleased for now, with Goldie's now showing actually he can play longer, because that was a doubt that some people would have, because there's a judge between it. Now he can mix between both the games. The important part now for his next one is he goes back to Bournemouth at the end of this season. He trains, puts himself in there, and then it's going to be where does he go next? He's got to be playing. He's 22 years old, so does he go to a Scottish side? Does he go to Europe? Where does he go from there for his next loan? Ideally, it would be great if that could be a combination of feet and long, but questions that we probably would have had all the way through. And since he's had his haircut now, he does, He always looked a lot.
That was good though.
Yeah,
I like the
liked
fact
it,
that he had
yeah.
the height as a goalkeeper. A couple of extra
We
inches.
like that. Made him a little bit taller.
Wasn't bad. Good for the brand.
He's now, the one of the questions for the second season when he was starting from our side, our all-white side, so how does he deal with balls into the box? And you've got to look at that season he had with Scott, the season that he's having now. He reads the ball into the box really well. So anybody, and this is Bournemouth, who have paid big money for him in the Premier League, haven't seen, we need a 6'5" goalkeeper. They've gone, actually, look how well he deals with everything that he comes for. So that is probably a massive, massive strength. Not with his feet, but how he reads the game.
At the moment, I realised, I think it probably grew, to be honest. I think round one he made probably the best save he made all season away at Western Sydney. It was like
Is
top
that the
corner,
back post one?
full stretch.
Yeah. Barello's been, I think it was either Barello or someone else is trying to bend it into the back post, and he goes full noise, fingertips around the post.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, wow, what a save. And then it grew. And then, I think round 2 and 3, we played Perth and Brisbane at home, and he was like just a freak with like Goffy was saying, playing, he was cruifing people on the 6-yard box. And it wasn't like sometimes you see goalkeepers, probably like maybe you two there, you cruyff and it doesn't look clean, it doesn't look smooth. He was doing it like a number 10. He was doing it like number 10s would do it. He just looked so comfortable with the ball at his feet. And, it's difficult, I think, as when you're training and for a number 2 goalkeeper, it's difficult to show those types of things in training because a lot of the work done by the keepers is away from the team, and then they come in for maybe the 5-a-sides or the 4v4s, or if you have an 11v11. And we never really played that style. I think under Ruffy we kicked long, and obviously Ollie was the keeper in that final year. AP didn't play a minute. And then all of a sudden, he's made that great save round 1. Then he's using his feet like better than any keeper you've ever seen use his feet in world football. And then it became consistent. You're probably expecting him at some point to have a dip and have a few games where he, maybe he drops one in or he makes a mistake with his feet, and he just never did that. He stayed so consistent. And I think for me the biggest, obviously he's a freak with his feet, like what Goffy was just saying there. He was so clean coming and catching the ball for not a giant of a goalkeeper. But the thing that stands out is exactly what Goffy said. It was his mentality and his mental strength, and he knew where he wanted to go. He was a bit different, probably the nicest, most sensible goalkeeper I've ever played with by far. Goalkeepers are usually a bit of a lunatic, but he was very different. But he was so, same as Oldie, same as Finn. These kids were so driven. They knew exactly where they wanted to go. They knew how they were going to get there with hard work, extra training sessions. I was actually, funny enough, I was at the game. Obviously, I missed the last game, and I was speaking to Paul Temple, who I think signed AP and Oldie. And he said he used to turn up at the reserve training ground, Fraser Park, at 8 o'clock every morning. And he said those 2 lads were there every single day on their own, just playing 1 touch against the wall, playing 2 touch, keeping the ball up. And he said, it's no surprise that them 2 lads have gone on to do what they've done. And that's just hunger and attitude and mentality. And, I'm delighted for him. Obviously, I wish he wasn't playing for Auckland this season, but, I'm sure he'll go on to bigger and better things. And, he's a great kid.
At great risk to myself, because I'm sat alongside not 1 but 2 goalkeepers. Goalkeepers are strange. I think that's a given. Scott, the weirdest goalkeeper you've ever come across in your lengthy career, who is it and what did they do that was so weird?
Oh, that's a tough question. I played with a lot. Ollie Sale was one of the maddest. Ollie's a mad guy. Ollie, he's
that's
a nice
an
fella,
honour, considering who you've played with.
Just in terms of like lunatic elements, he done some like not like bad things, but just some funny things that the lads have told me. Paddy Kenny was probably the maddest one. Remember Paddy Kenny, big lad, played for Sheffield United, Leeds, played with him at Leeds. He was a lunatic. He, you're talking about expressing your emotion. He would not hold back with anything that come into his head. He would say anything to anybody, whether it was the manager, players. He was nuts. So probably off the top of my head, I'd probably go with Paddy Kenny. And Ollie Sale.
Ollie Sale,
Nuts.
Paddy Kenny. That's yeah. I think Ollie's smiling somewhere. What? Yeah. Goffy.
There's obviously on a different side for me is because I work with the goalies now, so I look at those lot that we've had, and you look at the Stefan Marinovic's.
He always gets brought up.
He goes right. He's another. he's another one that's out there a little bit. Very interesting guy. Wants to know stuff. Magnificent for us in the All Whites and at Phoenix as well. But has that switch that we talked about will just go if that happens. We've seen that a few times in there, but really, again, driven. Ollie, well, I don't need to say too much on Ollie and how he's going, but he's another one that just wants to win. So when he's getting across and angry and shouting at the defenders or moaning, it's because there's something that's come through to him that he shouldn't have to do. Alex, we talked about at length. Max, Max is another one. He's over there playing in League One, playing in
getting battered at the moment under a huge amount of pressure with the regulation.
So he's actually competing for a relegation battle at the moment, but as a leader on the field with that kind of part of what he's been doing has been brilliant, and he fits into that sort of bit of a loopy one. Max has obviously had a couple of trips to Turkey, and his hair's growing back nicely, a bit like Bally.
No.
So we have said that we'll give. He's got a voucher for Ben Wayne as well. So
Wayno.
Yeah, Wayno turned up to camp this time with a new haircut, and he won't mind me saying this, but Wayno's turned up with a new camp, and there's a question mark there whether he's done it to hide his bald bit. So Max has given him a 10% off voucher in Turkey. So you can go and get some filled out for that one.
I wasn't expecting that bust to
come.
He's
He's got it off of Bally. So Bally, every time Bally went for a header, we'd always joke saying, "Oh, that's another follicle gone." It's easy coming from a guy. Is
that why he was benched for so long before he finally departed?
That's right.
It's like we can't risk the follicles.
You can't risk it. He had to wear a swimming cap, so they didn't want to mix it up for him. So, but yeah, the goalie side of it are really good. And then you work with some of the other guys as well. And you're looking at Goldie and people like that, all the different people. They're all obviously of a certain point, but most goalkeepers would all be able to put in a room and have a really good chat, and it would be a really good night. That's what I'd like to see. Stefan's
name always comes up, and when I was invited down to the All Whites goalkeeper training, what was that, a couple of years ago? And Stefan was there, and it was almost like he took it upon himself to scare the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And you were doing a few drills. It was sort of like coming for crosses and then distributing long range downfield, either throwing or kicking or whatever. And I thought, I could do that. That looks quite nice. But the only opportunity I got was when I was in the box and people are kicking the ball at me from like 6 to 10 yards away.
Yeah.
And Marinovic was gunning for my melon.
Yeah.
It was. I must admit, if you ask and you ever speak to Alex and Ollie about the sessions that we had as our three goalies when we were at the Phoenix from there, Steph's got a laser. He's got we call it Thunderfoot, because they drop it and it's either going at your head 1,000,000 miles an hour or going 1,000,000 miles over the crossbar. So it was a real big distance on that one. So you're not the first one.
Mate, honestly, I just felt myself, I was shrinking. I was going further down into the ground, like trying to parry it away. But
you said the wrong thing. I could do that, and now Stefan's just going to educate you, correct you, because you have to be told no, you can't do that. It takes a special mentality. Goff, though, you've kind of touched on a couple of the key names there, and I think this is I don't want to say an issue, but this is now the reality of the All Whites. We're not sure if we've got a squad of 23 or 26 for the upcoming World Cup. The regulations haven't been set. Regardless, there is a conversation around who's going to be in that squad.
Yeah.
And I won't get you to speak to the wider issues or the challenges that Basley's got coming up. But just looking at your goalkeepers, it seems like there's 9 or 10 that you are looking at the moment or keeping an eye on throughout the world. So do you just want to introduce the audience to who they are and where they're doing their business at the moment?
Yeah, when you start looking down it through the list at the moment, Max Crocombe in League One, played over 500 league games in there. Okay, we've got Alex Paulsen, has had 2 fantastic seasons, got a move to Bournemouth. Where does he go? Then you go Ollie Sow, he's been playing, been with us in our age group stuff. Nick Zaneff has been playing. They've just
in Northampton
League One as well. Just rotated the goalies on those. So next year's going to be an interesting year for them ones to see where they play next year. And then you work through from there. Case Sims is with Sweden. was due to play this week. They kick off their season, the top division in Sweden.
And he's in the, whatever it is, the Super League.
Super League one there, but he got a concussion in training. I spoke with him this morning. So I'm in contact with all of these ones all the time. Then you start going through those ones. We've got, obviously, Albie Kelly-Hild, that's now going to be with the Phoenix that came in and playing in our 19s. Henry Gray, who's signed for Ipswich and a contract extension in his second loan now, second season out on loan in the National League, playing for Braintree over there. And then you go below that, we've got Joe Wallace, who's at West Bromwich Albion and was at Auckland City. But West Brom, Joe's had a year of 21s, and when you talk to the club, he's now looking to go out on loan next year to a National League, League 2 side. And then we start working, you keep going down. We've got a guy who's Jose Casagrande, who's at Bristol City, who's the same age as the last ones I've mentioned, who's got a mother who's a Kiwi, so working through that one as well. So there's a huge list of
Valdi
those.
at Auckland FC as well,
Well,
mate.
exactly right. Now with Michael, what happens to Michael next year? Does he get the opportunity? Does he play? That will put him straight back in the mix. Scott Morris has been released by by Stoke. Where does he go now?
Yep.
So there's a load of the boys that we've got around, and then you start looking even underneath. When I won't bore you, but go down the depth chart. But you start going through. We've got a boy at Bristol Rovers who's 2010. We've got a boy at Seattle Sounders who's 2010. We've got a guy at Swansea who's 2009. Will probably be in our 17s World Cup squad. There's a huge amount of them out there. And that's not only all of the ones that we're working with in New Zealand as well. So the goalkeeping chart is no different to the players. There's a huge amount of players out there. So now it's competition. Who's playing regularly? And if they're playing regularly, how are they playing? And then let's pick the best 3 or 4, depending on the size of the squad.
Scott, you sent me a curious video yesterday evening. It looked to be from COVID times. Can you just explain what was going on there? Because it involved a young goalkeeper. I don't know if we'll put it up because it was...
We might put it up.
We might put it up. But it involved a young Henry Gray in front of Paul Gothard's hotel room. What had happened in the build-up to this? Because I think that's the most important part. That's the context that we need.
I wasn't there, but David Ball was living with Gary Hooper. And Henry Gray was like this 16-year-old. Was he 16, Goffy, at that time, I think?
16 then, yeah.
16, he came up. I've never seen a 16-year-old kid come over with so much confidence in himself about, not just on the pitch, but just off the pitch. He was getting involved in stuff. He was having a laugh, having a joke. Anyway, he's gone up to the room with Bally and Hoops, and Bally's having himself as a bit of a FIFA player. Plays with his kids all the time, says he doesn't play, but plays with his eldest Mason every night, so he's really good. And he's obviously doing bets, and they're betting over, get you a Nando's and coffees and all this stuff. And I think Henry Gray must have been down really bad. He must have owed him, and obviously Henry was 16, he probably wasn't getting paid at the time. So the Hoops and Bally have turned around to him and said, look, forget the coffees or whatever, but you've got to do like a bit of a dare. So they said, you've got to go down to Goffy's room. I think they wanted to do it in the nip, but obviously they couldn't for the video purposes. So he went down to Goffy's room with his socks on and his boxers, with goalie gloves, knock on the door. When Goffy opened the door, he had to throw the ball against the wall, catch it, dive on it, stand up. Bear in mind, he was probably 3rd or 4th choice at the time, and just look at Goffy and point at him with his goalie glove and say, "I'm your number 1." And it's just, honestly, it's such a funny video. It's so good.
Being on the other side.
It was Goffy's reaction.
How did you feel about things, Goffy?
It was
the other man in your pants.
I know, but I obviously, when I go to my room, there's a certain etiquette that you must get completely nude, So I did well to get me with my pants on, so that was okay. But
so we're lucky that
you were lucky. I came to the door with my pants on. So I was lucky when I've seen a video of it now. Crikey, my wife not so much. But she,
On the subject of strange things on tour during COVID times, Bally says that you and he had a wrestle in the sand and Gary Hooper was the referee, and that you lost that wrestle, Scott Wootton. Is this true?
No, there's no... A walrus couldn't lose a wrestle to a guy losing his hair, could he? Come on. But it did break my phone. All sand went in my... Well, that was actually... I was going to say this before, but when we were talking about Goffy, about the vouchers for Turkey and stuff, I think it was the same night, actually. I think we'd had 5 games in like 2 weeks, Goffy, if you remember, and we had a few days off. So we've had a well-deserved night out, shall we say. It started... The summer was... Well, it wasn't the summer. It was rained all the time. I think it was the worst summer in like 25 or 30 years in Sydney. So Bally's obviously... He's got wing backs and he's struggling with the Barnet, like, and the rain's coming down. And we'd gone to like this first bar and, you know, having a good time, and you've had a few drinks and then you're ready to kick on. So we're walking down the street, and like Bally's usually like life and soul of the party, the banter man, you know, wanting to be the centre of the laugh and the jokes, and he's usually like the front of the night out. We'll go here, we'll do this, and he starts saying like, you know, this is going to be crap, this next place, and you know, we need to go home. But this next place was meant to be like the best place to go. And everyone's like, shut up, Bally. And then you can see him in the mirror, like, sort of just, like, trying to, like what Goffy's saying about Wayne, trying to cover up his wing backs. And because it was wet, he just looked absolutely horrific. I should have sent you the picture, actually, that you can put up now for him. But, yeah.
There's still time, Scotty. There's still time.
This is going to be terrible.
Bally would never play in the rain. He never liked playing in the rain.
No. Because remember, he had a toe injury, didn't he? And he always used to check the weather forecast to decide if he was going to get an injection or not. If it was dry, he'd get the injection. If not,
if it's not, he's got fibres now, Bally, as well, so they're all right.
So, Scotty, you're on your way to this bar. How do you then get into a wrestle?
Oh, that was after the bar. We just, I don't know, I think Hoops had an idea to go get in the sea, and we ended up on the beach, or so I can't remember. And then we just, one thing, little trip up, clip of the heels, one thing said to him, and then we just ended up like being on the floor, trying to pin each other down, WWE style moves. And I just remember the next day waking up and the speaker of my phone and the charger, it was just full of sand, and it was knackered, it was gutted. But no, it was good fun.
And so
but he didn't win. There's no way he won.
Right, okay, because that's what I was just about to ask.
Absolutely.
You won the wrestle, not David Ball.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100. I think I had him tapping out, if I remember right.
Yeah. And I heard him saying, "Stop it, Scotty! Please let me go."
Yeah, exactly.
Well, another yarn that he suggested that I ask you about is losing your passport and what happened there. Because I suppose when you come down to New Zealand to play for the Phoenix, it's unlike any league in the world where domestically, in the domestic competition, you're actually travelling to Australia, a different country every week. So having a passport is very, very important for a member of the Wellington Phoenix. What happened with your passport, Scott?
This is... we were playing Perth away, so obviously Perth is 2 flights, and I think we trained in the morning. We flew to Sydney at 4, and then it was a nighttime flight to Sydney, and I lost my passport. But the worst thing was So I've got off the plane and I've realised as I'm waiting for the bags, I've tapped my pockets, you know, still a bit half asleep. I can't remember what time it was. I think it was midnight in Perth actually. And I've tried to run back up to the gate and I've had to run past a few people, say, I've left my passport, and the guy on the gate said, you can't go back on the plane, but what was your seat number? So I told him my seat number. He's gone back, had a look, said, look, there's nothing there, can't do anything, blah, 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 blah. So, okay, no problem. So obviously I'm panicking. I text the group chat. Has anyone got me? I think maybe one of the lads, maybe I did have it and, someone's picked it up and they're playing games or whatever, as lads do. No, get on the bus. I realise everyone's quite serious, no one's done it. So get to the hotel. I remember it was really late or early morning. And obviously I'm panicking. Bally's trying to get to sleep, thinking, fuck. Because it was Christmas Eve. The game was Christmas Eve. We were landing back at midnight on Christmas Day. So I'm like, 2 young kids, stressing out. But luckily enough, we were there, I think 3 or 4 days before the game to adapt to the time. Anyway, I Googled the British Embassy because I'm how to get a passport. Luckily enough, the British Embassy was like 300 metres away. Go there the next day. Yeah, you've got to. You need an emergency passport. It's like $400. We had to go. Bally came with me to get like a passport picture, and we were constantly, on the phone to people trying to ring Qantas, and the Qantas people at Perth. Must have been 50 times just to see if I think the electricians go on the plane after and check, and constantly on the phone. Anyway, this passport finally came to the embassy the morning of the game. So anyway, you needed one every time you travelled, so I needed like 3 or 4 because by the time it took to get a new passport. But the worst thing was we get back to Perth Airport and we're checking in, and I'm a bit nervous because I've got this it was like a bright blue, baby blue. It was only like a card, it wasn't even like a proper passport. So we get there, and this air hostess walks past me, like as a sort of double look at me, and like goes, "Oh, I had your passport the other day." So I was like, I said, "You what?" So I went up to the desk and I said, "Oh, I lost my passport 3 days ago coming travelling here." And one of the ladies just said she had my passport in Lost and Found or something like that. She goes, "Oh, I'll have a look for you." So she went and looked. I said, "Oh, look, sorry, there's nothing there." And so basically someone had found a passport on the plane, put it in. So you know all this nonsense when you have to fill in these forms and you put like an emergency contact number and an email address and all that. Just absolute waste of time. So they found my passport and no one rang me, emailed me, nothing. And my passport was in Perth's Lost and Found airport, but I had to that ended up costing me like $600-700, no more actually. It's probably over $1,000 to get like 2 or 3 other replacement passports for the rest of the season. That was a nightmare. But the worst thing was the first fella who checked it on the plane obviously didn't really look hard enough, and then someone did find it, gave it to someone, and then no one contacted me to say, and no one would even answer the phone. Yeah, it was a bad trip, that.
I suppose now enough time has passed, though. You can kind of look back and laugh, maybe.
Oh yeah, look, it's fine now. I got a new passport, and the passport came, and it all ended up being fine. But it was a stressful couple of days because again, it was Christmas Day. I was worried about getting back. I had 2 young kids.
I want to get on a necklace now.
Yeah. No, I'll never make that mistake again for sure.
Finn Surman, I think he's about to go for his
playing
4th
now,
game.
isn't he? I was going to watch him, but I had to do this instead. So
Sorry.
I think he's about to go. He should have been in his 4th match in the starting 11 for Portland Timbers under Phil Neville. You obviously played with him, and I'm sure you're instrumental in his development. What outside of getting him a haircut did you help him with, though?
Do you know what? I remember him and ahhing about getting the haircut. That was funny, actually.
Oh, it needed to happen.
Yeah, no, he did need to. He just looks a bit more grown up, a bit more mature, doesn't he? That the haircut he had in chats with Goffy was shocking, wasn't it? He looked like it was just all over the place. It was shocking.
14-year-old boy, and just made him look soft. You know, and I think that's what I mean. Now he needed to have a presence, and as soon as that happened, that's the following year when I was watching it. It was like, wow, should have done that years ago.
He seemed to be a very cool, calm individual, but just needed to have that time on the field with someone like yourself. And I think, arguably, that has helped him accelerate his development because he looks very much at home in senior football now. I think he's only, 20, 21, Goff?
He'll be 22 now.
22, there you go. So was it apparent his potential as you saw it when he started playing at 17? Yeah,
so similar to AP, that Chatswood year, Finn played a lot of football. I think he started, again, the A-League's 25 games, 26 games. Finn played, I think, 12, 13 games that season because we had a lot of injuries at one point in the season. And he kept getting cramped. Goffy, remember, he couldn't finish the game. He kept cramping in his calf. But you could see, you knew straight away, look, like Goffy was talking about the goalkeepers earlier, you go, he's 6'3", 6'4". He's pretty quick, he can run, he's good enough on the ball. Then it's just about sort of learning the game and being in the right position, smelling danger, almost making mistakes and learning from them. But he didn't really make that many mistakes when he played, to be honest. He was outstanding, and he played in the finals game at Amy Park, Western United, and was outstanding. And he was only 18 then. So you knew he had the potential at that age. Then the next year was really tough for him because I don't think we had as much injuries. And when he did play, he hadn't played for months and months. I think he dislocated his shoulder at one point. So we had a tough year that year. There was a talk of maybe a couple of other signings coming in that I had a couple of chats with him about. And then the next year, I think he proved in pre-season very early on. He just he filled out physically, he matured mentally, and he was ready. It was an absolute no-brainer for him to play. And it was a pleasure to play alongside him, really. A lot's made of obviously with me being older and him being a young lad. How much did you help him and all this? Did you speak to him? But he done it himself. He was amazing. Like I say, he ticks every box for me. And I think he made a good decision not to go to this camp. I think if he establishes himself in the MLS, playing at that level, that's where Boxall's played most of his career. He'll be a guaranteed starter in the World Cup if he cements himself. In my opinion, obviously I'm going to be a bit biased, but if I've helped him a little tiny bit along the way, down to the haircut, then fantastic. But listen, he done it all himself. He really did.
And here's your starting 11.
Worst ground you've had to travel to?
Accrington Stanley away.
Why?
Mingin. The changing room is like the smallest. It's just, it's tiny. It's horrific.
Pre-match meal?
Not too fussy on these types of things. I more just go with what I'm feeling, but usually either maybe some eggs and beans on toast, or some like a pasta bolognese, spaghetti bolognese, with maybe a yoghurt.
Who is your roommate?
Well, it was David Ball for the first 2.5 years, and then obviously this season he's moved on. I've actually been a bit of a roommate slut this year, to be honest. I've had 7 or 8 different roommates this year.
Are you picking and choosing, or are these people that you're rooming up with saying, I don't want Scott Wootton, and palming you off onto other people?
I think it's more the latter, to be honest. No, we had a pre-season trip. First trip I was with Bally, Central Coast away. Then the second game was Perth. I was with Costa. I've had Marco. I've had Roofs. I've had Payne. I always just go with, if someone's missing or injured, I just fill in like the utility player with the roommates. The roommate utility man.
What a good team, mate. Golf handicap, Scott?
Tough one. At my best, I reckon I was like 21, 22. But Roofs and Payne will say it was probably a bit higher, but a bit lower, sorry. If I played now, I'd probably be 26, 27. I haven't played in a while, to be honest, but I do need to get back into it, actually. But I'd say I'd like to get down to maybe 21, 22 again.
What is the place that you want to go back to after you've finished playing that you visited during your career?
Cape Town. Went there on a pre-season trip, and we were literally in and out. We landed the day before the game, played the game, and flew out that night. So I'd like to go back there and have a mooch about.
Lovely. And what was your first club?
Tranmere Rovers.
Favourite non-footballing athlete?
Tiger Woods.
Yeah, Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan have kind of split the field this year. What is the movie that you want to go back and watch for the first time?
The Departed. It's quite fresh
in
for me. I've seen that yesterday. It's a good film.
Again, that's a regular.
Leo, Matt Damon, so many big names, eh?
Yeah.
The team that you supported growing up?
Everton.
Oh, yuck. That's
Everton.
That's not good. All right, moving on quickly.
That's
worst
a shame.
injury? Yeah,
That's
worst,
a shame.
worst injury.
ACL. ACL reconstruction.
And coffee order?
Flat white with coconut milk.
Okay. Exotic.
And here's your starting 11.
Well, before we depart, is there anything more that Scott or Goffy would like to say to each other before we finally knock this on the head?
I do promise I will come and see you in Auckland very soon.
Famous last words.
Scotty's been really good. Like there's a coach in New Zealand who's up here now, but he's from Plymouth originally, and Scotty had an amazing career at Plymouth and was a crowd favourite there. So we'd got him. He actually, this is how good of a guy he is. He sent. We talked about it in Sydney, and then the following year I was back here and did it all from there. He actually sent up a Scotty Wootton signed Plymouth shirt that I'd given to that coach. Has just like made his day and did it all from there.
Brilliant.
What a top fella, you see.
Very
So
good
thanks
man.
for that, Scotty.
Top man.
Yeah.
No worries, Goffy. Great to finally speak to you again. Obviously, like I say, it felt like we spent a long time together in Chatswood, and then obviously as the season ends and Goffy had to move back to Auckland to his family. But no, just a top guy. Was great for the atmosphere and helped me settle. It was great. I remember when we went to Auckland that year. You were great with my family who were over at that point. You took a lot of time out to speak to me missus about living in New Zealand and helping her settle down and stuff. And you went out your way to do that, which you didn't have to do, which I always remember. And just glad to see him obviously doing really well with the national team, and obviously don't envy him picking his goalkeepers in the next 12 months. Sounds like he's got some big decisions, but I'm sure he'll do a fantastic job, and I wish him nothing but all the best and good success.
Top man. Brilliant. Thank you, Scotty. Thank you.
Cool. And nothing for us, G. So we'll leave it on that.
No
love for us.
Yeah.
Thanks,
No,
Scott.
you
though.
too, yeah.
Appreciate
You
having
too,
you on.
man.
Cheers,
Thanks,
mate.
Scott.
Yeah.
No worries, guys. Goran just hammers me, calls me the Walrus and Tower of Power and all these.
Oh, Tower of Power is better than the Walrus, surely. A Tower of Power, I was being complimentary.
No. Listen, no one has ever gave me a nickname that has got power involved in it, so.
You think it was an ironic nickname?
Thought you were taking the mickey, yeah?
No, come on, mate.
Just you're stronger than Bally, mate. That's what we're using as a reference point.
Yeah, it's not hard.
It's not hard though, is it?
Yeah.